The wedding ring was still on the table. He hadn't moved it. He couldn't. It sat right next to the divorce papers, cold, golden, meaningless, like a punctuation mark at the end of a sentence he never finished writing. Marcus Webb stood in the middle of his living room, still in his work clothes from the day before, and stared at the empty chair across from him. The chair where she used to sit, where she used to laugh, where she used to hold her coffee mug with both hands and say, "Tell me about your day." She was gone. Not just physically. Every photograph, every shared playlist, every memory she had ever touched. It all felt like it had been surgically removed overnight, like a surgeon had reached into his chest and taken something out, not even bothering to close the wound before leaving. "She didn't just leave me," he whispered to the empty room. "She erased me like I never mattered." Then his phone buzzed. Then it buzzed again. And again. He looked down at the screen, notifications flooding in, one after another, all pointing to the same breaking news alert. Billionaire business empire collapses overnight. CEO Harrison Cole at center of massive fraud scandal. Marcus stared at the headline for a long time. Then, slowly, the corner of his mouth curved. Not in celebration, not in cruelty, but in the quiet, exhausted way that a man smiles when he realizes the universe has finally kept a promise he stopped believing in. Because the man at the center of that scandal was the man she had left him for. And what neither of them knew. Not her, not Harrison Cole, not the reporters shouting into cameras outside a skyscraper in downtown Chicago, was that Marcus Webb was never just the poor husband. He was the reason the whole empire was falling. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. To understand how Marcus got here, you have to go back 7 years. Back to a small apartment in Cincinnati with a radiator that only worked when you hit it twice, a secondhand couch they'd found on the side of the road, and a woman named Diane who used to dance in the kitchen while making breakfast on Sunday mornings. Diane Clark was not cruel when he married her. That's the part that makes the story so complicated. She wasn't a villain from the beginning. She was ambitious, yes. She was restless. She had a hunger in her eyes that Marcus had always mistaken for passion, the way you sometimes confuse a storm cloud for a beautiful sunset until the rain starts. But in those early years, she was also warm, genuinely warm. She would drive 40 minutes to bring him lunch on a job site. She would stay up until 2 in the morning helping him study for his professional certifications. She called him her person. Marcus worked in infrastructure consulting, a field nobody thinks about until a bridge collapses or a sewage system fails. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't the kind of career that got mentioned at dinner parties. But it was honest work, and Marcus was extraordinarily good at it. He just wasn't rich. And that, it turned out, mattered more than he understood. "I just feel stuck," Diane said one evening, 3 years into the marriage. She was standing at the window, arms crossed, looking out at the parking lot below like it was personally offending her. "Stuck how?" Marcus asked, looking up from his laptop. "Here. This life. I'm 29, Marcus. My college roommate just bought a house in Scottsdale. My cousin is traveling to Bali every other month. And she gestured vaguely at the apartment. "Here. We're building something," he said. "We talked about this. The consultancy is growing. Give it 2 more years." "I've been giving it 2 more years," she said quietly, "for 3 years now." He didn't have an answer for that. So he went back to his laptop. And she went back to the window. And between them, something invisible began to crack. The social media didn't help. Instagram had a particular cruelty that year, relentless in its parade of curated wealth. Diane started following accounts that featured what the algorithm had decided she wanted to see. Penthouse apartments in Manhattan, couples on yachts off the Amalfi Coast, women in designer clothes being walked into restaurants by men who looked like they owned the buildings. "Do you ever think about what it would feel like?" she asked one night, her phone lighting up her face in the dark. "To just not worry about money?" "I think about it," Marcus said. "But I also think about what matters more than money." She didn't respond. She just kept scrolling. He should have noticed the distance increasing. He did notice it. Actually, he just kept believing that love was enough to bridge it. That if he worked harder, if he got the next contract, if he landed the right client, things would shift. He didn't know she had already started looking for the shift somewhere else. His name was Harrison Cole. He was 43 years old, CEO of Cole Infrastructure Holdings, The kind of company that threw its name on stadium naming rights and airport terminals. Tall, silver-haired in the distinguished way that seemed calculated, with a watch that cost more than Marcus's car. He and Diane met at a charity gala she'd attended with her firm. A networking event. She called it when she mentioned it briefly over dinner. Nice crowd, Marcus asked, cutting his chicken. Very, she said. That was the entire conversation. The expensive handbag appeared 6 weeks later. Italian leather, gold hardware, discreetly monogrammed. Marcus noticed it sitting on the kitchen counter and picked it up. This new. It was on sale, she said, not looking up from her phone. He put it down. He believed her. Then there were the late evenings. Client dinners, she explained. She worked in corporate events management, so it wasn't unreasonable. He didn't question it. He was busy with a massive water treatment contract he'd been fighting to finalize for months, one that would change everything for his consultancy. But then one Thursday night, she came home at midnight, and something about the way she moved through the apartment, carefully, quietly, like she was trying not to disturb something fragile, made him look up from the blueprints on his desk. "You okay?" he asked. "Fine," she said. "Tired." She went straight to the bedroom. He sat at his desk for another hour, staring at the blueprints without seeing them, with a feeling in his chest he couldn't name but recognized. The feeling of a man who already knows the answer to a question he hasn't asked yet. 2 weeks later, she sat down across from him at the kitchen table on a Sunday morning. No coffee, no breakfast, just her hands flat on the table and her eyes steady. "I need to talk to you," she said. "Okay," he said. "I can't do this anymore, Marcus." The words landed in the room like stones dropped into water. "Can't do what?" he asked, though he already knew. "This. Us. This life." She exhaled slowly. "I've tried. I really have. But I need something different. I need more than what we have here." "More than what we have," he repeated. "I'm not happy, Marcus. I haven't been happy for a long time." "Are you seeing someone?" he asked quietly. A pause. "Just long enough." "I met someone," she said. It wasn't planned. But yes." The room went very quiet. The radiator, which had been knocking rhythmically for years, chose that moment to fall completely silent. "Who?" "It doesn't matter who. It matters to me." She looked at the table. "His name is Harrison. He's rich," Marcus finished. She didn't deny it. She didn't say anything at all. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. She moved into Harrison Cole's penthouse on the 42nd floor of a Lakeshore Drive high-rise. Photos appeared on her newly public Instagram account. Rooftop dinners, private flights, gallery openings. She looked radiant. She looked like someone who had finally arrived somewhere she'd been trying to get to for years. Marcus moved into a smaller apartment near his office. He packed his own boxes. He ate cereal for dinner for 2 weeks. He did not cry, or rather, he cried once, quietly, with the faucet running in the bathroom so nobody could hear, and then he stopped and didn't cry again. He had work to do. And then, 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, an anonymous email arrived in his personal inbox. Subject line, "You'll want to see this." He opened it, read the first 2 lines, and sat very still for a very long time. If you're still watching up to now, type, "I'm still here" in the comment section. Your support means everything to us. The months that followed the divorce were the kind that strip a person down to their foundation. Marcus lost weight he hadn't been planning to lose. He lost sleep. He lost the ability to listen to certain songs, eat at certain restaurants, walk through certain neighborhoods without the weight of memory pressing down on him. But he did not lose his work ethic. If anything, it intensified. He buried himself in the water treatment project, a massive public infrastructure contract spanning 3 counties in Illinois. It was the kind of work that required him to dig through years of old documentation, old permits, old engineering records. The kind of work most consultants outsourced the boring parts of. Marcus never outsourced anything. And that was how he found it. It started as an anomaly. A discrepancy in a drainage system specification filed 6 years ago by a company called Apex Civil Solutions, a subsidiary he'd never heard of. The numbers didn't match. The materials listed on the public permit were not the materials that had been installed. He flagged it, dug deeper. Apex Civil Solutions was a shell company. It routed back through 2 holding companies, 2 offshore accounts, and ultimately landed in the portfolio of Cole Infrastructure Holdings. Harrison Cole's company had been systematically overbilling municipal governments across the Midwest for years. Inferior materials. ghost subcontractors, falsified inspections. The kind of fraud that didn't reveal itself unless someone sat down with 7 years of cross-reference documentation and refused to look away. Marcus sat with that information for 3 weeks. He said nothing to anyone. Then the anonymous email arrived. He opened it again now, reading it more carefully. It was from someone identifying themselves only as a former compliance officer. They had been trying to report this internally for 2 years. Every attempt had been buried. They had heard Marcus's name mentioned in connection with the county infrastructure audit and had reached out on the chance he had found what they believed was findable. If you've seen what I think you've seen, the email ended, then you already know this is bigger than both of us. The question is what you're going to do about it. Marcus printed the email. He put it in a folder. He placed it on his desk next to a framed photo of a bridge he'd helped build in 2019. Then he picked up the phone and called the FBI field office in Chicago. Meanwhile, across the city, Diane's new life was beginning to show its hairline fractures. She had noticed that Harrison could be charming in public and cold in private. She had noticed that his phone was always face down. She had noticed the way his lawyers spoke to him. Deferentially, yes, but also carefully. The way you speak to someone you're slightly afraid of. You've been quiet, she said to him one evening over dinner in the penthouse, the city glittering 42 floors below. Business, he said, refilling his wine. You're always stressed about business. That's what business is. She looked at him across the table, this man she had upended her life for, and felt, for the first time, a small and uncomfortable question begin to form somewhere behind her ribs. She pushed it down. She picked up her wine. She looked out at the city. But the question didn't go away. The investigation took 4 months. Federal investigators, working alongside state attorneys general from Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, quietly built the case that Marcus's documentation had made possible. His records, meticulous, cross-referenced, impossible to dismiss, formed the evidentiary spine of what became one of the largest municipal infrastructure fraud prosecutions in the Midwest in 20 years. Harrison Cole did not know it was coming until the morning it arrived. Marcus heard it first on the radio in his car, on a Tuesday morning in March, on his way to a site visit. Breaking news: federal authorities have arrested Harrison Cole, CEO of Cole Infrastructure Holdings, on charges of wire fraud, bid rigging, and conspiracy to defraud multiple county governments. The arrest follows a months-long federal investigation into what authorities are calling. He pulled over. He sat in the car on the side of the road, engine running, and listened to the entire report. His hands were completely still on the steering wheel. By noon, it was everywhere. Every news channel, every social media feed. The stock price of Cole Infrastructure Holdings had already been halted. His lawyers were issuing statements. Former associates were going on record. And Diane? Diane was watching it all unfold from the 42nd floor of a building she suddenly wasn't sure she'd be able to stay in. On the phone with her mother, speaking in a voice that had lost all its confidence. Mom, I don't know what's going to happen. Come home, her mother said. I can't just. Diane, come home. The penthouse was frozen in the aftermath. His lawyers were calling. His assets were being inventoried. His bank accounts, at least the domestic ones, were already flagged. The things she had believed were permanent had turned out to be temporary, and the things she had treated as temporary, her marriage, her loyalty, her vows, had turned out to be the only real things in the story. She sat on the edge of the bed in the silent penthouse and stared at her own reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window. She looked like a stranger to herself. This is the moment everything changes. If this story is hitting different right now, smash that like button and share this video. You never know who needs to hear this today. 3 days after the arrest, Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't pick it up. Marcus. He recognized her voice immediately. He would have recognized it anywhere, in any crowd, on any planet. Diane, he said. A long silence. I saw your name, she said. In one of the filings. The federal filings. I saw your name listed as a cooperating source. He didn't say anything. Was it you, she asked. Her voice was steady, but only barely. Was it you who? I found something in my work, he said carefully. I reported it. That's all. Another silence. Marcus, she stopped. Started again. I made a terrible mistake. I know, he said. Her voice cracked slightly. I was so sure that what I was going toward was better than what I was leaving behind. I was so sure. And now, she exhaled slowly. Now I'm sitting in a hotel room because I can't go back to the penthouse. And I'm calling the person I hurt the most because I don't know who else to call. And I know that's not fair. I know that. Marcus held the phone. Outside his window, the city moved the way cities always do. Indifferent, continuous, alive. What do you want me to say, Diane? I don't know, she said honestly. I think I just needed to hear your voice. To know that you're okay. I'm okay, he said. Are you? A beat. I'm getting there, he said. The call ended a few minutes later. No resolution. No forgiveness declared. No dramatic reunion. Just two people on either end of a phone, separated by choices that couldn't be unchosen, finally speaking honestly to each other for the first time in years. Marcus set the phone down. He looked at the wedding ring, which he had finally moved from the table to the top of the bookshelf. Not thrown away, not worn, just placed somewhere out of the way. He understood something now that he hadn't understood in the middle of the pain. Her leaving had not been his failure. It had been her fear. Fear of a life that didn't match the one she'd imagined. Fear of arriving at 50 and wondering what might have been. He understood the fear, even if he couldn't excuse what she'd done with it. And Harrison Cole's collapse had not been his victory. It had just been his obligation. He had found something wrong and reported it. That was all. The outcome was never about revenge. It had never been personal. Except, of course, that it was. Entirely. Deeply. Human. 2 years later, Marcus Webb was named lead consultant on a 4-county public infrastructure restoration project, the largest of its kind in the state's history, funded in part through the settlement recoveries from the Cole infrastructure prosecution. He was not rich in the way Harrison Cole had been rich. He was something different. He was solvent, respected, and quiet in the way a man is quiet when he has finally made peace with who he is. He moved into a house. Not a penthouse. A house with a porch and a garden that he had no idea how to tend and learned slowly, with the patient incompetence of someone who is genuinely trying. He did not hate Diane. He had done the work of not hating her. It was real work, the kind that requires showing up every day and choosing differently. Choosing not to let the wound become the whole story. He heard through a mutual friend that she had moved back to Cincinnati, that she was working at a nonprofit now, that she seemed quieter than she used to be, more careful, more present. He hoped she was okay. He genuinely did. Because the thing he had come to understand, the thing sitting in a small empty apartment eating cereal for dinner had taught him, was that the people who hurt us are rarely monsters. They're usually just people who were afraid, who made choices from that fear, and who eventually had to live with the consequences the way we all do. Her fear had cost her everything she thought she was running toward. His steadiness had cost him a great deal of pain and ultimately given him something he hadn't known he was building toward. On a Thursday evening in late April, Marcus sat on his porch with a cup of coffee and watched the sun go down over the rooftops of his neighborhood. His phone buzzed, a message from the project team, something routine about a permit timeline. He replied, set the phone face up on the armrest, and looked back at the sky. He thought about the wedding ring, now in a drawer somewhere, and what it had once meant and what it meant now. Not nothing, but differently. A record of something that had been real, even if it hadn't lasted. He thought about the anonymous email and the person who had reached out to him in desperation, trusting that a stranger would do the right thing. He had done the right thing. That mattered. He thought about the bridge he'd helped build in 2019. Still standing, still carrying weight, still connecting two sides of something that would have otherwise been separated. He finished his coffee. He went inside. And the final thought, the one that settled over him like the evening settling over the city, was this. Not every departure is your loss. Some are life removing people who were never meant to stay. And sometimes the quietest man in the room is the one holding the thread that, when finally pulled, unravels everything. If this story moved you, subscribe to this channel for more cinematic life stories that feel more real than fiction. Like this video, drop a comment below. Do you think Diane loved Marcus? Or just the life he couldn't give her? Was her choice greed or survival? What would you have done in his place? Because sometimes, truth really is the greatest plot twist. We'll see you in the next one.